like to call the meeting to order. And if you would all stand, those that can, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think everyone has a copy of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
There's a second. Ron moved it. Ron Hall seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We have the treasurer's report, but we ran out of paper. It's about a 3-page report. We can post it later on when we can run the paper, or we can have read it if you want to. It's a long one. But, what is the? Go ahead, Don.
I make a motion we accept this printed up here.
There's been a motion to accept the minutes and have them printed later on. Is that correct? Right. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Right. For a treasurer's report, Megan Thomas has given you the report. I'll read it for you. For a political, we have $6,892.62. Our restricted account, we have $194.63. Our state account, we have $124.22. In our judicial, we have $161.16. In our building fund, we have $158,146.57. Any questions regarding the treasurer's report? As you can see, we are getting low, so we will be. I'll let you know now. We have secured the convention center.
You have a question?
Right, go ahead.
Yeah, Mark, amen.
Dave?
I'm the precinct captain, Vandalia Butler, B1. I have a question for you.
All right.
Is the new executive director going to be paid?
Yes.
And you are aware that there were folks that applied for the job that were willing to work without pay?
They said so, yes.
I said that.
Right.
And yet you decided, instead of given the financial situation of the party, to find someone who would be paid.
We, as you know, there were 3 people that were interviewed you, and our collective decision was to bring him in, and yes, we are paying.
Okay. And still, given your statement about the financial condition of the party, you think that's appropriate to do? And I want to make sure everybody in this room knows that when I interviewed for the job, I said that we should have a young person with fire in their belly. And the only reason I ran for this job was because of the stunt that happened in October. And what I want to make clear is that it seemed to me, for having financial problems, maybe we took a turn for the worse. The other thing I want to ask, and then I'll sit down, and this lady over here has got a question or comment, is the person that you've hired formerly worked for you when you were court clerk, correct?
No.
Did not.
Did not.
Did you have any other relationship with him?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I know the person.
How do we know this person will be able to stand up to you and say no if somebody tries to do what they did in October with mailings?
That's
What?
I don't know. That's something for the future to decide.
Well, it seems like that's kind of a weak ground to be on, since the consequences of us doing that again is to lose funding for postage.
Point of order. This is the treasurer's report.
Yes, ma'am, you're correct.
Right.
That was my question. Thank you very
All
much.
right. So, Mary, go ahead.
Okay, as the bookkeeper for the last 11 years, I would like to express that our temporary shortage in the political account is primarily due to our not having the frolic for the last 2 years, thanks to COVID. I'm assuming that when we do the frolic this year, We can remedy most of that, so paying for an executive director for all that they do, which is more than 20 hours a week, and usually way more than that, which they do gratis, I think it's worth our getting somebody in now to get the frolic off the ground. So, from the volunteers that have been in the office, we needed somebody, and we appreciate Dave's offer to do it for free, we really do. But I think hiring somebody who can commit to the time that's gonna be needed to get everything off the ground, I think we're gonna be okay with paying him in the short run until we get our funds back up to speed where they've been in the past.
Thank you.
And I think most of you met Zach. Zach, are you back there? Wave your hand. Zach is, who did bring on as our executive director. Zach? So before we get going, I did want to say a few things maybe a little bit out of order because it's the chairman's comment, but I'm going to say it anyway now. So I've spent more than 40 years working with this Montgomery County Democratic Party. I've fought with our shared values, things like equality, justice, economic opportunity. I have served in many capacities in this party, being campaign manager, precinct committee person. I began serving as vice chairman under Chair Dennis Lieberman 28 years ago. And 15 years ago, I was privileged to begin serving as chairman of the Central Executive Committee of this party. I'm extremely proud of what we've accomplished over the past 15 years. We've elected Democratic leaders like Nan Whaley, Brandon Plain, Willis Blackshear Jr., Carolyn Rice, Judges Gerald Parker, Mary Montgomery, Helen Wallace, Susan Sully, local leaders like Clayton Mayor Mike Stevens, Kettering Council members Joe Hall Smith, Lucia Duvall, and Montgomery, Dayton Clerk of Courts Marty Garris. There have been many others as well. Additionally, we worked hard to beat back Republican attempts to destroy our labor unions and make us into a right-to-work state. We have we sold our old headquarters and put us, except for having no frolic the last 2 years, in a better financial situation and probably a better place to have our headquarters as well.
Amen.
I will remain committed to continue to fight for our shared values. However, as I did last year when I left the clerk of court's office so that new leadership could have an opportunity, I believe that Montgomery County Democratic Party should have a new leader with fresh perspectives. Therefore, I will not be seeking another term as your county chair. I hope as a party we can come together to pick a leader who can continue to build a progressive coalition with labor, our minority community, women, and activists. While my role may be changing, I will still be fighting for our democratic values. There are too many threats from Republicans in Washington and Columbus for me to sit on the sideline. I will continue to serve as your chairman until a new chair is chosen at our reorganization meeting after the primary. I am committed to helping the next party chair in any way I can. I thank you for allowing me to serve as your chair for the last 15 years. It has been an honor. So we'll get back to our agenda. And we have under new business, we did have a screening committee last night. We do have a report on that. Let's go through some of the...
Mark,
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report.
All right, I'm sorry. Motion to accept the treasury report. Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Opposed? Okay. So we have some people that are running unopposed in the primary. And so we'll bring those first. We have Carolyn Rice. I don't know if Carolyn is here tonight. Carolyn is running for county commissioner once again. And it was our recommendation that Carolyn Rice be endorsed for that position. Is there a motion to?
Move to support.
Move to adopt the recommendation of the screening committee.
Okay, there's a motion and a second.
Second. Who was that motion?
Marty Garris. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then we have Carl Keith running for county auditor. Carl back in the back. It was the screening committee's recommendation that Carl Keith, again, he has no primary opposition. Motion by Tim Gorman. Is there a second?
Second. Diane Walsh.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, if those have the blue slips, if they will raise them. All right, is there any opposition? Okay, motion passes. We have Julie Bruns, who is running for juvenile court. Julie, are you here, Julie? You stand up there. We met Julie on the Zoom meetings the last couple of times. And Julie is currently a magistrate with the Montgomery County Juvenile Court. Prior to that, for nearly 20 years, she was with the prosecutor's office. I think more than half of that time she worked in the juvenile court. It was our recommendation that Julie Bruns receive the endorsement of the Montgomery County Democratic Party. John Murphy.
Second.
Motion by John Murphy, second by Don Wojcik. All those in favor, if you would, by raising your blue. All right. Is there any opposition? All right, passes unanimously. Okay, the next thing we screened was in the congressional race. We may have to have Sarah come up and explain where we're at on that. But we had David Andrade, Jeff Hardenbrook. David, great ways up. Jeff Hardenbrook, if you would stand up. Jeff, where are you at? I thought I saw you walk in. Over on the right. Jeff is a former congressional candidate in the old 8th district where he ran twice against John Boehner. And then we have Baxter Stapleton, a young man that grew up around here, left town for a little bit, is back. But Baxter is running for Congress as well. Last night, after much discussion, because we were really unsure of what's going on with the congressional race, with what's going on in Ohio, it was decided that we would table any endorsement in the congressional race. Looking to see where we were at with when it might go back on the ballot or when it would be on the ballot. And Sarah, do you want to give us an update? Sarah is our deputy director at the Montgomery County.
Mark, there's another person that's running as a Democrat. Were you able to reach Kirk
There was
Benjamin?
another person. We sent him several, tried to call us on the numbers we had. We had about 3 or 4 emails that we sent it to, and he did not respond.
Okay, thank you.
Hi. So good to see you all. So last night at about 9 o'clock, we received our most recent directive from the Secretary of State. It's March 24th. We've received 31 directives this year, which I think we don't usually receive 31 directives in an entire year. The status of the current election is we are having a primary election on May 3rd. That election will include the contest for governor, all of the statewide constitutional candidates, U.S. Senate, U.S. Congress, and countywide and other local options. It will not include contests for state house, state senate, or state central committee. That was in the directive that came down yesterday. We are proceeding. We have until April 5th to send out UOCAVA ballots, which are overseas and military voters' ballots. That is supposed to have happened 2 weeks ago, but there is an extension from the Department of Defense. We'll also have 10 extra days after the election to receive those ballots in, which means we will not certify this election until the earliest we could certify would be 21 days after instead of 11 days is when we usually start the official canvass. Additionally, and this part was a little bit hidden, all boards were directed that if they have certified candidates for State House, State Senate, or State Central Committee, those certifications are null and void. At the next meeting, the board will have to acknowledge that on the record, which means as of this moment, not only do we not have those contests, we don't have any candidates. There's no further explanation. So, does this mean we'll have a second primary? Possibly. Does this mean that they are going to reopen petitioning? Maybe. For the most part, we're just awaiting more guidance, but right this minute, this is how it stands. I do not guarantee you that this information is accurate for very long.
Thank you, Sarah. And just as an update, so to kind of review where we're at with these redistricting. So on the State House and on the State Senate, the Ohio Supreme Court had kept jurisdiction. Talked to more lawyers about what all this means. So they kept jurisdiction on as we continue through the process. So right now they have a third plan that many people filed their petitions on, and there's been objections, and those objections are in front of the Supreme Court right now. They're the ones that ordered, basically, to bring in new map makers and a arbitrator as well. So people were online today, they could see map makers in it, because under our Constitution, that's supposed to be transparent, doing it and open. So there was a video of these map makers in the room trying to draw maps that people really didn't understand what they were doing, but they were there. So they were supposed to have that completed by next week. Additionally, there is a federal court case brought on by some Republican petitioners trying to impose the third set that the Ohio Supreme Court said was unconstitutional on Ohio, and that case has not been decided yet. For the congressional maps, the first set were unconstitutional. The second set wasn't much better. There's 15 congressional districts in Ohio. Under our Constitution, there's supposed to be proportionality over, they look at how Democrats and Republicans have performed over a period, I think 2 election cycles. Theoretically, because of the way that the votes have come down, it should be either 8-7 Republican or 9-6 Republican. They came up with a map that was allegedly 10-5, but in reality, there were 3 that they call Democratic districts that were less than 1% difference. All the Republican districts were, I believe, more than 5%. So that's basically what happened in the State House. They have allegedly 46 Democratic districts. 26 of those were within 1 to 2 points. Every Republican district was 3 points or more. Most of them 5, 6 points or 10 points or more, whatever. So that's what the Supreme Court is looking at right now. So that's kind of where we're at with redistricting. The other problem is I mentioned they kept jurisdiction for the State House races. For whatever reason, the Supreme Court did not keep jurisdiction in the congressional district. So earlier this week, they basically, or I guess actually at the end of last week, they said that they could not rule on the new districts, that there would have to be a new court case filed. The AFL-CIO, ACLU, sorry about that, the League of Women Voters, and AFL Randolph all filed jointly. But this week, the ACLU and the League of Women Voters decided to withdraw the lawsuit, saying that because of the primary, they thought that we should just accept these. I don't know if the battery's going on this or not. They thought.
I think it's good.
There it is. They thought that they should just accept it for this year and challenge it for '24. I think AFL Randolph is trying to figure out if they can go ahead and file their own lawsuit against it. So that's kind of where we're at on those. So that's why we may end up having a congressional. Yes, David.
The Republicans were talking about removing or impeaching Maureen O'Connor. And it seems to me, because of the gerrymander that they've had in place, they have enough votes to do that. I might be wrong.
I guess in theory they do. I don't know. I haven't count. I don't know. I haven't checked to see how much they would have. I guess your only hope is that there are at least a few Republicans that have respect for the judiciary.
Well, I was going to say, maybe this party could reach out to President Biden to have him award her a Presidential Medal of Freedom for standing up for the rights of Ohioans against her own party, because this is unheard of. She's really protecting all of us, and it's kind of amazing considering her voting record over the past. So I wonder if we could try to help bring attention to somebody who's, I mean, she's got death threats, she's had all kinds of attacks levied upon her, and I think it's incredibly brave what she's doing. Unfortunately, it's her last term,
Right.
but
Well, I'm certain. We'll look into it.
what kind of battery does it take?
It's red. I know it's red. It keeps going out. So sorry about that. So I guess let me go ahead and do the judicials. We had 3 people that, and again, it was kind of a little complicated here. So Judge Greg Singer resigned on the 31st of December. Mike, I think this battery's going bad. So I'll scream. How's that? So Judge Singer resigned effective December 31st. It was prior to the filing deadline. Because he resigned before his term's up, there has to be a special election to fill it out. The governor gets to appoint that person. Since it was before the filing deadline, people had to file for that. We had 3 candidates file for that. We had Tony Shane, Angelina Jackson, and is Jacqueline Gaines here as well? Jacqueline Gaines, everyone stand up here. Jacqueline Gaines is back there. Jacqueline. Angelina Jackson here. Tony Shane. Jacqueline, she is a magistrate with the Domestic Relations Court for the last 10 years.
11 years.
11 years, sorry. Prior to that, she worked with a couple of the larger firms here in Dayton, as well as a little bit of work down in Hamilton County, but most of her law has been here. Is that correct?
18 years in Montgomery County.
Angelina Jackson is currently with the Montgomery County Public Defender's Office. Prior to that, she also had experience with some large firms here in Dayton. Well, you probably tell better.
I worked at the law firm of Dinsmore and Scholl, and I did civil rights work with the Ohio Justice Policy Center.
And Tony Shane is currently with the Montgomery County Democratic Prosecutor's Office. Do you want to say anything more about yourself, Tony?
Prior to that, I was with Fruity, Ireland, and Cox, and I had a practice out on my own for a period of time. But I've been at the prosecutor's office the last 10 years at this point.
So, you guys can sit down. So they all filed for the Singer seat. Subsequent to that, Mike Kromholtz, who was a Democratic judge. Mike Kromholtz, a Democratic judge. He also retired as effective February 28th. Since that was after the filing deadline, again, the governor will appoint someone to fill out his term, and we, as a party, through the Central Committee, will have the opportunity to place someone's name on the ballot. So we had these 3 individuals that filed or came in and asked for a endorsement for both of those seats. They're all very, very excellent candidates. We have usually only 2 seats that are open, that on the common pleas are open. We do have other seats coming up in a couple of years that we all encourage them, if they don't get it here, to look at those, or just some of the better candidates that we've had come forward. But we did want to make a decision. So the first thing we looked at was the one that the county can appoint to, and it was the recommendation of the screening committee that Tony Shane be put into that position, be endorsed and put into that position. That left the 2 candidates that are running in the Singer seat still, and it was a recommendation, again, after much discussion with the screening committee, that Angelina Jackson be recommended for endorsement for the Singer seat. So, is there any motion to accept that?
Mark, I suggest we allow the voters to choose their judge, because we already have a policy, once you get elected, you never get challenged. That's not really a democracy. I believe all 3 candidates were great candidates. You got to pick one because of the way the law works. Let the other 2 go out to the people and tell them their story and give them a choice. They're both highly qualified. I think it's disrespectful, and this is why we can't find candidates for so many seats. We push people away when we do this. That's the end of my speech.
I agree, David.
Don?
Move to support the screening committee recommendation.
There's a motion to support the screening committee recommendation.
I second it.
There's a second. Is there any discussion? Dennis?
Mr. Chairman, I am not on the Central Committee, but I'm going to invite a member of the Central Committee to move to amend the motion which is currently before it for this reason. You are correct. All 3 of these candidates are excellent candidates. And in fact, I've been told in the legal area that we're looking at possibly as many as 14 judiciary positions becoming open within the next 5 years. That's municipal, court of appeals, and common pleas. And that's an enormous opportunity for a lot of different people that may not get the nod tonight to be able to be selected by our Central Committee in the future. The reason I am asking to consider an amendment is this. Last night, the screening committee did not know of who the Republicans were going to tap to fill these seats. As of this afternoon, we now know. The Republicans have selected Kim Melnick, who is a Montgomery County prosecutor, to run for Singer's position. I'm sorry, for Krumholtz's position. And has selected Robert Hansman to run for Singer's position. So that would actually match up Tony, who's an excellent candidate, against Kim, and it would match then Alexandria against
Angelina
Hanson, who brings into this campaign a lot of money. And so I would like the committee to consider an amendment to the motion, just to switch, so that we would have Tony running for Singer's seat, and we would then have Alexandria, I'm sorry.
Angelina.
Angelina, you told me I was running. I'm sorry, we're old back here. Angelina, I knew that. we'd have Angelina then running in the Krumholtz seat, so that Angelina would be running against Kim, and then Tony would be running against Robert Hansen. Part of this reason is that I think if we do this, we have a strong chance of winning both of these. I did not personally talk to Tony or to Angelina about whether they're willing to do this. I'm sure Tony doesn't want to run a primary. I'm sure Angela doesn't want to run a primary. I hope there is no primary because we have lots of positions which are coming open in the near future. However, if there is a primary, and Tony, I think would do very well, and could also, if he does have to spend money, could end up using that money wisely so that it could also do him well in the general election. I think that's the best matchup. I'm not alone in that. I know Judge Montgomery feels that way. Judge Dankoff feels that way. Both of whom told me that they actually reached out to Tony. And I know Tony is a team player, and I know he would consider this. I'm not going to talk for him because he may have changed his mind since the judge told me that. But I honestly believe that this is our best shot. Otherwise, I don't like the matchup the way it currently is. Now that we have this information, I'm asking somebody to make that motion to amend in the manner in which I suggested.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I would like to ask for a recess, please.
Pardon? Say that again.
I would like to ask for a brief recess.
A brief recess.
I'd just like to say, this idea of being political kingmakers and playing chess, instead of giving voters an opportunity to make a decision and see those names on the ballot and have to do their homework and have to do the research, I think it's a disservice to the voters. I think it's a disservice to the candidates to pull these people out from their dreams and chances to run for office, to make themselves known, to go out there and get practice at running, to get out there and shake hands, know people, talk on, and be in the front of things. It's a great process to go through, and it's how our system is supposed to work. And if we keep doing this, where we try to just have 40 people in the back room, or in this case, our former chair, deciding who gets to get what, it's bad enough we get to pick a judge for the people, but now we're picking who gets to run in the primary. This party should be helping every Democrat who wants to run. Every Democrat. But I forget. Oh, we sent out mail against Shanice. We sent out mail against Daryl.
Control of the floor, please.
All right.
Didn't you already lose your job?
No,
Jesus Christ.
I did not.
So there was a request for a recess.
Yes. Which is not debatable and takes precedence over everything else on the floor.
All right.
Put to a vote.
There's a request for recess. Is there all in favor of recess? Please raise your blue hand. All right. Let's see. 1, 2. How long do you think we need a recess for?
7 minutes.
All right.
It's 8:08 now.
All right. Opposed. Let me see how many people are opposed. 1, 2, 3.
Opposed? Raise your hands.
Opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it passed.
It is 8:08.
We will be back at precisely 8:13.
Several 3 different durations out there.
I love that we have never taken a recess in this body in the, 5 years that I've been involved. And I was ready to put it tonight, and somebody else did.
10 minutes off, let's get back to this so we can get out of here tonight. If we can do it orderly. Judge Garris has bought pizza for his son Marty's birthday today, so. All right, let's get back to we'll bring this back into order here. We are back in session, if you will. I think we left it last. Did somebody make the motion? I don't know if there was a second. I think Tim made the motion. Was it? There was no second. Are you a member of the committee, Katie? Are you a member of the second?
All right, I'll second.
Ron Hall seconded it. Is there any discussion on that motion?
What is the motion, please?
The motion was to switch the two candidates, the endorsed candidates. One was to have Tony run for the Singer seat, and the other, Angelina, run for the Trumbull seat. Marty? Yeah, well, the motion was to amend the recommendation. All right.
So, the motion to amend would happen before.
Right.
Yeah.
The motion to amend happens before the original one. No. The room can. So, does anyone want to speak on the motion to amend?
Point of information.
Yes.
I asked for a point of information, so I have questions. My questions are related to our recess. I don't know how the candidates feel about that, so I would like to hear from the candidates to know if they're agreeable to this amendment.
I'm agreeable to it.
I think there's too much unknown on what's happening in the current situation. In one seat, I'm being told today, this afternoon, I'm coming here for one reason. These judges did reach out to me in the course of those discussions. There were suggestions from the judges on what they thought was best. There was never an agreement by me that this was the direction it was going. It was guidance from people who I respect. And I was more than happy to listen to that guidance because I do respect those people. But there was certainly never anything in those discussions that I agreed to a switch of the candidacy in the way. And I'm not saying Dennis is wrong in what he's saying, but there wasn't an agreement with me in a meeting saying that this is something I would do. I don't know what the third candidate in this is doing as far as Jacqueline, and it's unfair to her, to me, for people to try to say to her in this meeting and try to say to her, you need to do something as a result and pressure her. And I'm not saying people are doing that intentionally, but I don't know what her impressions are. Last night a decision was made. Today that decision was given to me. It does put me in a position where I'm running against a coworker. I came to grips with that, came tonight in order to accept said endorsement. So the party's gonna do what the party's gonna do, I guess, but it's one of those things. I'm fine moving forward with the Cromwell seat. That's what I came here to do tonight.
Would you clarify, there's one seat that you're going to appoint to?
That's correct.
Who is that?
That's the Cromwell seat.
Okay, so why don't you I'd like to recommend that you make two different motions, whenever it comes time to that. So you can vote on that separately.
We still haven't heard from the third candidate.
Jacqueline, did you want to say anything at all?
I came here to observe, to listen, did not come here to make any decisions today. I pulled petitions for the singer seat. I raised money. I gathered volunteers, raised support. And so this afternoon I learned that the screening committee made a decision that did not include me. So I do think it's unfair to ask me to make a pivotal decision without the adequate time to weigh the options. I'm not in disagreement that perhaps the voters should decide, because up to 2 weeks ago, that was the direction that the party was going.
So, how do you want to proceed, folks? Dennis?
Let me say this, I'm the one that made this motion. There,
Question.
yeah, and David,
You can't make a motion, you're not a voting member.
He's just clarifying, okay?
I am not a kingmaker. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for 43 years. For 13 of those years, I was chair of the party. So I'm bringing what has been my experience in the legal and political field, and I'm making a suggestion which I think is best for our party. I love all of these people, and I just want us to be in a position where we can win more races. And that is why I made the suggestion that I made. And I don't think it's not anti-democratic to suggest that somebody might be a better candidate now that we know who's running against them. This is information we wanted last night at the screening committee. We didn't get not until today. And I mean, I have endorsed Tony. I like Tony. This is not against Tony. This is simply to try to do the right thing by our party. And that is why I have asked for the amendment, so that we're not eating each other up in a primary. Judicial races are expensive, and judicial races can really be difficult if we are running Democrats against Democrats. And if we have the space, why do that? That's all I'm saying. It makes sense. But I'm not going to argue with you, David. I made my point. I've explained to everybody why I did what I did. And I'm sticking by it.
I make a recommendation, we endorse all three candidates, let them go through the primary. Whoever comes in first place gets to choose whether they want Krumholtz's seat or they go on to the election.
There's a motion on the table.
Question on the floor as to whether to amend the screening committee's recommendation. Okay? And that would be to switch the candidates running based on who they run against. So, on the motion on the floor, all in favor of to amend the recommendation, please raise your
Is the discussion done on?
There was a call to the question.
So what are we voting on?
The amendment.
The amendment, it would be to have Tony run for the Singer seat, which would be running in the primary, and with Ms. Jackson running in the Humboldt seat. The recommendation last night was opposite.
So, Mark, just real quick, for parliamentary procedure, for someone to move to end the debate, to call the question, two-thirds of the room needs to agree to end debate. If we do that and agree to end the debate, then we can proceed to vote on the amendment to the motion. We can pass or fail, and then go from there. So right now, the vote, 2/3 of the room will need to agree to end the debate. If that doesn't work, debate will stay open until people have finished and we can all agree to move forward with the vote on the amendment.
Thank you.
All right. There's been a call a question. All in favor of calling the question, raise your. All right, can someone help me count here? I'll take
this half of the room.
I got 12 over here. Okay, that's 25. All right, opposed, raise your. There's 7 here, 11.
I see more than 4 on this side.
Hold them up high again. I saw 4.
Hold up, hi guys.
I'm counting this side. 1, 2, 3, 4.
You've got 7 on this side, so that's 11. What's the,
7 and 26 is 37. So you're good.
How many abstentions?
all right?
Point of order, the chair is the one
Is
who calls.
there any exceptions? Seeing none, I think the question's been called, right? Is that correct? We got 2/3? Yes. Yes, we have 2/3. So, on the motion before us, which is, again, to have change the screening committee recommendation from Tony running for the Singer seat, Tony Shane running for the Singer seat, and Julian Jackson running for the Cromwell seat. Those in favor of that motion, raise your blue. 1, 2, 3. Any others? 4, 5. Opposed to the motion, raise it. All right, so the motion fails. So the recommendation from the screening committee then becomes the main motion. And that motion would be to have Tony Shane run for the Cromwell seat. And do we want to have them separate? No. And Julian Jackson be endorsed for the,
Let me say something.
Let's make the motion, I'd
let's
like
make
to.
the motion
Can't stand underneath the speaker.
first. All right. Go ahead.
I'm a member of the screening committee, and I want to say how outstanding all 3 candidates are. Just incredible, outstanding candidates. One of my concerns about this party, especially in recent months, is that we have been a circular firing squad. We have not worked at working together. We have allowed name-calling to dominate, name-calling and vulgar language to be directed at our leaders especially. It's very disheartening to work in a room with that attitude. However, the screening committee last night, hearing from these candidates, was very encouraged because they are so outstanding. If there were a 3rd seat, we would like all 3 candidates to be able to run. I am a big believer in screening candidates because, I don't know about you, but I can't give much more than about 50 to 100, maybe $200 a year to this party. If I were a Republican or a doctor or something, I might be able to add several zeros to that. Our party traditionally doesn't have a lot of money. So to me, it's foolish not to let people know of the candidates that we have. Here's the ones that we can work together. My heart goes out to Jacqueline because she's an outstanding candidate, and she may choose to continue to be in the primary. It's her call. I would encourage her to consider withdrawing and support one of the endorsed candidates. In that action, she would be learning, and this is just, my heart goes out to you personally, but this would be what I would hope for any candidate. It's why the question is on the screening document. There is so much to learn about campaigning. In this room, there's a handful of people who have very much knowledge about it. And the folks who know the most about it are those who have run. So I encourage you to support the screening committee's recommendation. I encourage you to support all the Democrats in the room to be the best people they can and to work together to elect as many Democrats as we can, because there's too many Republicans in this state telling us how to live our lives.
Mark?
Michael?
I'm going to vote no on doing any of the endorsements because of what was just said, that all three of these people are excellent people. And I think we're creating these around firing squads you're talking about by making these kind of forced choices that are unnecessary. We need to vote no against these endorsements, and we need to have a policy that says we do not endorse when we have excellent candidates. The only time we should ever endorse is if we're trying to get rid of somebody. That's the only thing that would make sense. And if we want to keep these people in our party and working for other people, we need to simply say no endorsements. And I hope you'll agree with that. I think that's what's tearing this party apart. We need to be different and do better.
This is a really unusual situation. We need to endorse somebody because we have the power to put somebody on the ballot without them going through the primary. The only way they're going to get on the ballot to run against the seat for Judge Crumholz is for us to nominate somebody, and that's what the screening committee understood, and that's what we did last night. We picked a candidate that we felt, given their prior experience and their, can I finish? And their prior experience and prior interest in running a campaign, their prior activities, we felt that he was the candidate that should be given the nomination to be able to run in Judge Crumholz's seat. There is not going to be a primary for Judge Crumholz's seat. There is going to be a primary for Judge Sigger's seat, and the screening committee felt that the person who had the qualifications that most fit that seat would be Angela Gunn.
Was it so big of a decision? Was it overwhelming, something so outstanding you just couldn't help but do that? So, I mean, I don't think that's a good reason. You just kind of felt so this or you felt that. But anyway, what I'd like to say is that we should separate these two then. If we have the option of putting somebody in the Crumholz seat, let's do that. But let's not endorse in the ones where we have a choice not to. That's what I think would be the better solution. But I'm just dead against putting Democrats against each other that are good Democrats. And by your own testimony, these are all good people. And just because you feel this way or feel that way is not a good reason.
Well, it wasn't about feeling, it was about facts, and it was about the fact that whoever, if there's a primary, they're going to have to both spend money against each other. And it's also knowing that what Dennis explained, that in the next few years, there's going to be a lot of judgeships open because people won't be able to run again because of their age. So I recommend that we go along with the screening committee's recommendation.
You haven't been recognized. Sit
David,
down.
you've had your shot on the motion already.
Oh, no, this is on the motion. This
You
is,
already talked about the motion.
this is about, in the presidential election, how many people wanted Yang? How many people wanted somebody else, Buttigieg? You didn't even get the choice. It's time.
Marty?
I would like to call the question.
Can you explain it again, Mark?
Right now, the question is being called. That's all we're asking if you
To end debate.
to end debate. To end debate. 28, I think, which is more than, that's more than 2/3. So now, the question's been called. The question on the floor is whether you accept the screening committee's recommendation to endorse Tony Shane for the seat of Mike Crumholz and to endorse Angelina Jackson for the seat of Greg Singer. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hold them up high.
Hold them up high. All in favor, raise your.
No, yours up, it's 11 on this side.
I got 13 over here. That is 24, right? Opposed to the motion? Got this side? I have 3, so the motion passes. Congratulations. All right, a couple other bits of new business. As we had talked at our last meeting, we do need to look at a constitution. And I've talked to several people, and I'm going to form a constitution committee. And I'd let you know who they are. Brandon McLean, I've asked to chair it. Zach Dickerson is going to be on it. Dennis Lieberman will be on it. Kiara Deaver. Casey Witten, Casey, you have to, Amadon, okay, I'm sorry about that. Paul Bradley, Melissa Rodriguez, Marty Garris, Tom Ritchie, and Stacy Benson Taylor. And what we would do, what I've asked both Brandon and Zach, who is help with this as well as a parliamentarian, is that we will have a forum in here in April, where people that want to have ideas about what to put in the Constitution can come and make their feelings known to the committee. We will have asked the committee or asked Brandon to try to come up with some times when all the committee members can do that. I've asked that it be held in the evening so as many people can come as possible, and you can all have put in your input about what should be on the new Constitution. So, Zach?
So yeah, if you, for the meeting that he's talking about that will happen in April, I know a lot of people have renewed and vigorous interest in the Constitution and things that should or should not be in it. In preparation for that meeting in April, if you want to come, I think as many of you that can should, a couple of things. The Constitution for the county party is on the website. So I would encourage you to go there and read it and come to that meeting prepared with any things that you might want to tweak or change or add or remove. Additionally, there are 2 big issues that we're going to be discussing at that April meeting. One, which you are all, I think, keenly aware of, is the endorsement process. Should it be reformed or should it be removed entirely from what we do? So that's number 1. And number 2, a big issue that came up just, I think, on our last Zoom call was this notion of whether or what the central committee and the executive committee should be. There was a suggestion that, as they do in some of the other counties and at the state party, that they completely combine those bodies. If you've not thought about that before, that's kind of a big deal. If we just make the entire central committee the executive committee. So those are the 2 big things. There are other things, and if you look through the Constitution, there are things that you'll identify that we need to change because there are parts of it that refer to processes in the bylaws that do not exist in the bylaws. So we're going to have to make some things up. We got to fix some things that are not in the Constitution that should be. But those are the 2 big issues you need to become prepared to discuss. What we should do about endorsements and what we should do about the central committee, executive committee bifurcation. Yes, ma'am.
When would this body approve constitutional changes?
Good question.
They would, after this meeting, they would continue to work, and they would bring those recommendations to the reorganization meeting.
Yeah, the meeting in April coming up, not going to decide anything. It's a discussion, so we can voice opinions. The group that Mark talked about will take the feedback and try to put together recommended language and edits to present at the reorganization meeting when that happens. We may not have agreement. We may have to draft dual language that says we're keeping the endorsement of candidates during primaries, but we're going to reform it in this way, and additional language that says we're ripping it out of the Constitution and it's no longer there. So we're going to have multiple versions of that language ready to be able to talk about at the reorganization. But yeah, not voting on anything in April, it's a discussion.
Is there a date?
Not a date yet. No date, we don't have a date yet. Yeah.
And the people who vote on it are the newly elected.
Right, the people that will vote on what the new Constitution is will be the precinct captains that come out of the primary on May 3rd.
All right? Yeah.
Yes.
I would recommend too that people read the ODP Constitution because we have to follow the ODP Constitution. We can't do things in conflict. So the ODP, on the ODP website.
Thank you for that. Yeah, you'll want to take a look at the ODP Constitution.
And we have other constitutions that we have that they can look at as well. Go ahead, Marty.
I believe that the Ohio Democratic Party also has to approve our Constitution. So that's the last point of clarification that I would like everybody here to know. That ultimately it's up to us, but it's not. It's got to go to the state.
If it conflicts with any of the rules of the DNC, ODP, they can't accept it.
So, by the way, one of those issues, just to think about, it has been mentioned here in the past, this idea of maybe doing certain votes by secret ballot. That could present a conflict because the ODP Constitution specifically prohibits those things.
As does the DNC.
So, should that come up and be something that you want to do, we can put it in and see what they say, but there is a likelihood they would reject a provision like that.
All right. And then the other thing I want to suggest, and I said this is probably what happened after the primary, is I don't know who plans on running for chair yet, everybody, but assuming there'll be multiple candidates, I would hope to have a forum here sometime probably in May, after the primary, or late May, that you can ask questions of anybody who has an interest in running for chair. And finally, we do have the convention centers reserved for June the 2nd for calling for funds, hopefully. It is, I'm hoping that regardless of who